Hello and welcome to our first literary encounter. I am very pleased to welcome today Elizabeth Kesses, the author of the Ugly Little Girl trilogy. The first novel, to be precise, the first book of the trilogy, is heavily inspired by the life of the author. So without waiting, welcome to Elizabeth Kesses.
Hello.
An ugly girl.
I did think I was ugly for a very long time, that's true.
You're not ugly.
No, I don't know.
Pure fiction. Yeah. So, Elisabeth, this book is inspired by your childhood and your adolescence, but presents itself as a novel. Was there a triggering event that led you to write the book?
Actually, there was. I wasn't a writer before. I used to work in marketing, I was in advertising, and about 2 years ago I was blogging for the Huffington Post, and about 2 years ago I went on holiday with my husband. I was sitting on the beach, sunglasses, everything was perfect, and suddenly opposite me was a little girl aged 12 who looked just like I did at her age. Frizzy hair, thick glasses, terrible skin, hand-me-down clothes from some old aunt. It was just awful. And my husband looked over at me and he said, "What's the matter?" Because there was a solitary tear flowing down my cheek. And I said, "Look at that little girl, that ugly little girl, that was me." And after that, I literally took my BlackBerry, and I've written all my books on my BlackBerry. I started writing on the BlackBerry in the car on the way back home, and I didn't. Yeah, and I didn't stop for 2 years, and that's how I got started to writing. Yeah.
Okay, that's the story beginning.
That is the beginning of the story.
Okay, so you talk about self-esteem, but we can't compare the Ugly Little Girl trilogy to a simple self-development or life coaching handbook. Can we?
Well, it's interesting because I wanted to write something for that little girl. I wanted to help her, but I didn't want it to be like brown bread. You know, when you give kids things that are healthy, they don't like it. So I wanted to serve it up as fun and fantasy, as a beautiful tale that would take her on a journey, but also give her some useful tips along the way. So for example, and we're going to talk about this in a minute, but when she goes to Oddbods, there's some useful things that she can use in her daily life to make her feel better about herself.
Okay, I understand, okay. So, no doubt, it's a novel.
It is indeed a novel, and it's drawn from some people in my life. Some of it has been kind of made up in my head through imagination and subconscious, and people that I always wanted. When I was little, I used to write a lot. Okay. I used to go home, because I didn't have a great time at school, I used to go home and write little stories. And I used to write about boarding school, funnily enough. When I was little, I really wanted to go to boarding school. It was just this perfect place where there was no bullying, no teasing, no nothing. And I used to invent characters, and I think some of them were sort of trapped in my memory and came out when I started writing.
Yeah, okay. Like the thread from your imagination, like I see Mr. Cosm.
Mr. Cosm is slightly based on my dad, but the teachers like Miss Frango and Miss Moozle. So in Oddbods, they're these amazing teachers that take care of you, that boost you. Like, for example, when I was little, I hated playing sport. And in netball, Miss Moozle takes the girls and boys and lets them play with the ball, and everyone has their own unique way of passing it. So no one is bad, because when I was little, I always dropped the ball. And whenever we used to do the queuing up to who's going to be on which team, I was always last. Always last.
Always last.
Yeah.
Okay. And the small dog Posse, is it real or just from imagination?
Well, Posse's made up of a poodle mixed with a sausage dog, which makes it Posse. And I just wanted to create animals that are really different and that don't fit in. So he has kind of crisis of identity, because he doesn't know if he's a poodle and he doesn't know if he's a sausage dog. And there's also an Oddbods school for animals later on in book 2 and 3, where dogs can go when they feel like they don't fit in.
Okay, Elisabeth. So, with all these things, do you want to read some extracts?
I'd love to. I really would. In fact, it's one of the first times I've really read the book to people, so I'd be very happy to do it. Exactly.
I'd be happy to hear you.
Okay, here we go. So, chapter 1, Ugly Bug. Once upon a time, there was an ugly little girl. Libby wasn't always ugly. the family photo album was full of pictures of her as a tiny tot. Pink frilly dresses, curly locks, and an angel face. Her parents used to call her Doe, as she had such big brown eyes. Then, suddenly, there were no more pictures of her. There was the odd official class photo around her house, her face hidden in the back row, but that was it. It wasn't just the photos. There were no more invitations to parties. Her friends began teasing her, and her parents stopped her doing the one thing she loved. So Libby spent more and more time on her own. One night she overheard her perfect elder sister Helen talking to her mum. "You need to get her hair cut or something. She looks so geeky, it's embarrassing." Her sister was being spiteful as usual, but she was right, Libby thought silently, sobbing on the stairs. Ever since her 10th birthday, everything had gone wrong. It was the opposite of the ugly duck fairy tale. Her hair used to be silky like her sister's, but now it had frizzed up and would look more like a loo brush. Her mum would nag her to comb it, but Libby could not get a hand through it, let alone a brush. Her rosy skin had become spotty, her teeth had started to stick out, and she became blind as a bat, so had to wear thick glasses. Of course, after that, she got called every name under the sun. Pizza face, metal mouth, Fanny Four Eyes. Then to top it all, when she got really nervous, her armpits would suddenly sweat, leaving nasty patches. A bit like now, really. She dared not raise her arm in class in case people laughed at her, so her teachers gave her lower marks. Libby's mum went nuts, shouting the house down that she had sacrificed herself to send Libby to private school, and it had all been for nothing. It was all so unfair. Growing up was meant to be so much fun. Shopping, discos, going out with boys, freedom. That's how it had been for her sister, who was naturally pretty, and everyone adored her. She had heaps of friends, always a boy in tow, and was allowed to do the things she loved. Her latest fad was singing, though no one dared tell her she sounded like a cat being strangled when she hit the high notes. Last year it had been horse riding, and the year before gymnastics. There was clearly one rule for Helen and another for Libby, who had to give up her one true passion, ballet. Her mum said she no longer had a face for the stage and should concentrate on her studies. She had been accepted to the best dance school in the UK, but her mother had declined her offer without telling her. It had shattered Libby's heart, and she threw away her ballet shoes, vowing never to dance again.
Thank you, Elisabeth. It's a great pleasure to hear you.
Thank you. Well, that's the start of the book, and as you see, it's in her real life. So Libby has her day life where she has to suffer bullying and deal with all the problems of school, her elder sister, studies, everything. Mm-hmm. And then what you discover in the book after a few chapters is that there is a night time for Libby, which is when she escapes to the magical night school of Oddbods. The magical night school of Oddbods. And you can only go there if you're visited by Vera, the ugly witch, mm-hmm. who gets uglier every time she visits a young child. Okay. And she takes you away with the magic words, oddity boom, to Oddbods we zoom.
Oh, the Oddbods. Can we have a little more about that?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about Oddbods. I don't talk about it enough because it is the fun side of the story. You talk about how this is a self-help book, and yes, it's to help boost children's self-esteem, mm-hmm. but there's such a fun side to the story, so I would love to talk about it.
Okay, so I will hear you.
Okie doke.
About the Oddbods.
And there's even posse in this bit.
Great.
Okay.
Here we go.
She followed both teachers into the building, which again seemed very ordinary. But again, she discovered that appearances were very deceptive at Oddbods. So first of all, this is the dining room, a very important place for midnight snacks. We only eat food that we feel like eating here and that our bodies ask for. Your tummy will tell you what it needs on the tummyometer. Mr. Cosm, the headmaster, then stepped onto some scales, and the words cheese and biscuits appeared. See, you then pick up a tray and your snack is ready. This was the best ever school dinner. Between her mother's bad cooking and disgusting school dinners, she didn't enjoy her food very much. It was either sweaty sandwiches, some sloppy brown stew, or stinky fish pie. Come on, Libby, hop on, and let's see what your tummy has to say for itself. The scale shook, and then there appeared a big jam donut, her absolute favourite. She hadn't eaten a donut for ages. Her sister had said they would make her fat. Aha, you needed a little pick-me-up, I see. Go and grab your snack, and then let's walk around the main school. Libby bit into the bun, and it had the sweetest, strawberriest, jammiest feeling. So we don't have traditional classes like maths, English or history. We are here to learn about ourselves and how to deal with our odd freaky bits, or freak classes. He pointed to a big signpost with arrows pointing in different directions. On each were all the things people did not like about themselves. Each freak class had a funny symbol next to it. My ears are too big. I'm a teacher's pet. My hair is frizzy. My bum's too big. I get scared too easily. My teeth stick out. I don't look cool. I am too hairy. The list went on and on and on. Libby wanted to sign up for each class there and then. Of course, for you, we will start with a general introduction to freakiness, and after that, you will focus on your weak spots. Let's go and have a look at how Oddbods actually works. They walked down a corridor that got narrower and lower till they had to lower their heads. Everything was also mini, tiny doors and windows, all made for little ones. Oddbod starts at infant level. Oddbodinis come to us if they have problems in their early childhood. Sometimes they are adopted and have trouble fitting in. Sometimes their parents are divorced, or one has passed away and they feel abandoned. They poked their heads around a door and the room was filled with coloured bubbles floating in the air. Toddlers were jumping up to catch them, gurgling with laughter. Once they grabbed their bubbles, they looked inside. These are dream bubbles. When you are little, it is important to believe that anything is possible, especially if your everyday life is tough. It was touching to see that Oddbods had made these sad children happy again. Mr. Cosm gave one to Libby. She peered into it and saw a perfect ballerina. Libby felt her eyes tear up. This had been her one and only dream. She burst the bubble, as she knew it would never come true now.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I have a question about another writer. Did we already compare you to J.K. Rowling? Because the Oddbod School, as you explain and you read and you say it is magical, etc., makes me think of Hogwarts, Harry Potter's famous school.
Oh, I would love to be compared to J.K. Rowling. It would be a complete dream.
Never?
I suppose the idea that there's this fantastical school is similar, where the lessons aren't quite the same and you learn new magic skills and tricks in Hogwarts. In Oddbods, the lessons are mainly around self-esteem. Whilst there are some fantastical elements where they travel around the world on a space-time travel machine in freakography, where you get to visit the freaks of the world, there are some specific lessons around self-esteem and body confidence. For example, there's a Hall of Mirrors. So Libby goes to the Hall of Mirrors on her first trip to Oddbods, and there she looks in the truth mirror, which is where she sees how she views herself. It's her perception of Libby. And instead of seeing a sweet little girl, which is what she is, which is what my photo was earlier, I'm not ugly, I just really underconfident. It's
just
an ordinary little girl. Instead of seeing an ordinary little girl, she sees a horrible, disgusting, ugly bug.
Yeah.
And then in the next class at the Hall of Mirrors, she has to create an avatar of herself. So she has to draw it, and it actually starts to talk back to her, and she realises how sad she is. And it's quite confronting to see herself talking and behaving in such an underconfident way.
Yeah. Okay. And we talk about Oddbods, but what it means. Can you tell us a bit more also about the Oddbodosophy?
Yeah, I guess for me
Yeah.
it's about believing in yourself. Oddballs is for children who think that they're misfits, that they're different. And actually being different is what makes you unique, it's what makes you special. And those ingredients, so Libby is very creative, she's really imaginative, and people call her a freak because of that at school, as they did to me.
Yeah.
And it's actually that makes her so wonderful. And so Oddballs is about recognising the true you and loving that, and not trying to be perfect looking or to behave like everybody else.
Accept yourself.
Exactly. And today, you know, there's so much pressure to be this way, to have skinny legs, to look beautiful like the models. And I wanted Oddballs to be a place where you can go and you look at other people. And of course, we all have our bits we don't like. You know, some people don't like their nose, some people don't like their hair, some people don't like...
We're not perfect.
No, none of us are. And it's good to recognise that we are all in the same boat. And that's why I wanted to create a world. So a little girl or a little boy will see that they're not on their own. This is a wonderful place that celebrates difference.
Okay, great. Okay, and without revealing the end, of course, do you have a last extract illustrating Libby's quest?
Absolutely, because one of the important parts of the story, which creates a lot of drama and excitement, is that you discover there is another night school called Narcissus. And so you can probably guess that the children who go there aren't interested in self-esteem and being different. They all want to look the same. They all want to look like pop stars, celebrities, models, and they go there to get more and more perfect. Yeah. And the headmaster of that school is Imago, and later on in book 2 and 3 you'll see how he tries to gain more and more in power because he can't stand ugly children.
Okay. So you go.
Absolutely.
To explain all that.
Okay.
Okay.
The next time she opened her eyes, she was neither in Oddballs nor in her bedroom. The first thing she detected was the absolute silence, the absence of any noise whatsoever. She also felt beyond woozy and her head thumped. Libby was standing in a bright white room, so bright it was like it was day. Everything was so silky soft, even the floor and walls. It was also full of beautiful statues, familiar faces, gods and goddesses. At the end of the hall was a huge doll in gold with diamond eyes and real blonde hair. It was the most dazzling thing Libby had ever seen. The walls were white, but they reflected back your image, as did the floor. In fact, everything was a mirror. No one was around. Libby wondered where Ben would be. As his name popped into her head, he walked through an invisible door. He seemed to know what he was doing and motioned her to be quiet. As he got closer, she could smell his overpowering aftershave, a bit too sickly sweet, but probably perfect for Narcissus. He didn't say anything, but squeezed her hand. There was a sudden scratching noise, and Libby hid behind Ben. Out popped Astrid from behind a door. "Namaste," she grinned from ear to ear, as if it was the best surprise ever. "What the heck are you doing here?" hissed Ben angrily. Her face fell as Ben's harsh voice echoed around the mirrored room. "Well, I'm not sure actually. I fell asleep with my spoons and well, here I am." Ben picked up the spoon and saw his face staring back at him. Slightly longer and fatter than usual due to the curve of the metal. "Oh, it must have acted like a mirror and jumped you here. I doubt you'll get in with your bedhead and flopsy clothes. I'd send you back home, but I don't know how. Stick right behind us and keep your mouth shut." Ben seemed overly grumpy that Astrid had tagged along too. Maybe he'd hoped to be alone with Libby, like a date. Astrid kept rubbing a spoon nervously until finally she bent it in two. Libby was at a loss what to say or do, but Ben seemed to know exactly what to do next. In the middle of the room was a white box on a marble table. Ben went up to it, and the box opened to reveal 3 bottles. Inside were different coloured bottles that were all bubbling. Rainbows of steam flowed out of the top. On each bottle was a label with tiny writing. On the bright green one was Face Me. On the pink, Hair Me. And on the orange, Body Me. Ben picked up the Body Me bottle. I reckon there is one for each of us. I can't stand my tubby body, so this one is for me. Astrid doesn't like her eyes and nose, so face one must be for her. And hair for you, Libby, with your shaggy mop. He said the last two words with a big cheesy grin to take the edge off the criticism. Libby smiled back, but she was just not sure she wanted to drink a potion on top of the sleeping tablet she'd taken. But what if it does something bad? I mean, how do we know we can trust it? Ben picked up the orange one and sniffed it. It must be something we have to do to get in. Maybe it's a ritual. You have to make your worst feature perfect. Libby looked at her lime green liquid. And what if it lasts forever? Astrid was about to take a sip. She was used to taking magic concoctions back at the commune. Herbs smashed with river water, flower petal soup left in the moonlight for fairies to bless, cocoa pods, stinging nettles and bee pollen boiled for hours. It can't do any real harm, Lib. With that, she downed the drink. Nothing happened. See, safe as houses. Then, all of a sudden, her face began to ripple like water. She grabbed hold of Libby. It was as if someone was moulding her face like plasticine. Her eyes started to move apart, and her pupils dilated like a cat. Then her bobbly nose softened, and finally her enormous forehead, that had given her the name of Mr. Potato at school, became a perfect rectangle. It was incredible. A few little changes, and she went from freak to fairy. I'm in, said Ben as he gulped back his orange elixir. His tummy made a growling noise and then caved in. Out popped a six-pack as his legs lengthened and his shoulders broadened. He was at least 5 inches taller and had the body of a rugger player. He was incredibly handsome now. The most handsome boy on earth, thought Libby. She took a leap of faith. She couldn't be the odd one out, could she? She sipped her pink hair drink. Her head tugged a bit, but no big difference. Come on, Lib, down all of it. Astrid tipped the cup up and it went down Libby's throat, burning and almost choking her. Her frizzy curls instantly smoothed out and extended down to her waist and became all flecked with gold. It was like Rapunzel's, straight out of a shampoo ad. She saw herself in the mirror. For once, she actually liked what she saw. When Auntie Dee had restyled her hair, it was poker straight and lifeless, but now it was wavy and glossy. Even her eyebrows were silkier, and the dark wisps on her arm had turned golden. She looked nothing like the little ugly girl of a few months ago.
Thank you so much, Elisabeth, for sharing all this with us. Time is going very fast, so I propose we take our first internet question, okay?
Brilliant, absolutely.
Yeah. So our first question is, during childhood and even more during adolescence, we want to be part of a group. Strangely, it's by joining the school, of difference with all its misfits that you find your real family. And the question is, what do you think about that?
I think that when you go to any ordinary school in real life, if you're not very confident, it's very hard. And I was a very sensitive, vulnerable little girl. I didn't fit into the popular group or the pretty group. I didn't even fit into the sporty group because I was so bad at sport. And so I kind of stayed in the slightly geeky, reclusive group, and I didn't ever really have a solid pack of friends that stood up for me, that stood by me. So when I was teased, I felt alone. And I guess I wanted to create a place where children who might not feel good about themselves can go in their imaginations by reading, and they can feel like, okay, I've got real friends. And in book 2 and book 3, you meet a lot more characters. Because Libby goes on to have more responsibility at Odds, and she has little children come in that she hasn't met before, and she has to mentor them. So there's an even bigger group, and they're the sort of people I would have been friends with if I'd had the chance.
Okay, understand. And this is, I don't know if you want to ask this question, but I think you dedicated your book to your father. Is it true?
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to talk
Yeah,
about
no,
that.
I dedicated the book to my father because he actually unfortunately died before I started writing, and he would have been really proud of me. He always told me I should write, and I never did, even though I really wanted to. And so it's important to me because also actually I think Mr. Cosm, the headmaster, has a lot of qualities that my father had.
Okay.
He's very wise, he's very protective. And somehow having Mr. Cosm in the book means my father is still around.
Okay, so inspired by your father, Mr. Cousin.
Absolutely.
Okay, and we talk about sports. Your dream of becoming a dancer. Did you realize it, this dream?
I didn't. But in a way I did, and I explain why. Because I love dance. I did it up until the age of about 10 or 11. And then at that age, your body starts to change and you feel a bit uncomfortable and a bit awkward putting a leotard on. And I think it's something like 60% of young girls stop doing sport or taking part in games and dance because they don't like how they look. So I think I kind of didn't feel good about myself, so I didn't want to do it. And also I thought studying would be the best way. It would lead to a good education and studies, university. So
you concentrate on your studies.
I concentrated on my studies, and then I went into marketing. But there was always something there.
You like?
That it was like a creative part of me that had never been fulfilled. And after some big life events happened to me, I always say 3 bad things happened at the same time. I lost a job, I got divorced, and my father started getting sick. I needed to just regroup, go away. I went to Australia, and it was like the pray bit of Eat, Pray, Love, the book. And
you wanted to change your life.
I really wanted to change my life, and I don't know, I just started blogging, and I blogged for the Huffington Post.
Okay.
And for me, writing is a bit like dancing. It's like my imagination is dancing rather than my feet, and that fulfills me.
To say that.
and that's, I guess, so I am. But it's still, in truth, it's still quite painful when I go to the ballet and I see dancers on stage, because there's always that, what if I'd done it?
What if? We can say always what if.
Exactly. And you go on to find out about Libby in book 2 that though her passion is ballet, it's sometimes not as easy as you think to turn your passion into your real life.
And it is a real job when you begin. And
Yeah,
you say,
totally.
maybe I will take that hobby.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. Question now from Christina, who said, thank you for this journey between dream and reality. Where did you find so much imagination and humor? Astrid Spoons, for example, how did the idea come to you? This is a good question.
It is a really good question. In fact, I have a spoon here.
You have a spoon, yeah.
I have a spoon because Astrid is Libby's best friend.
Okay.
And she's based on a real life person. Her name is Mahini, and she's a singer, and she is completely crazy and eccentric.
Oh.
She grew up in a hippie commune. She used to down eggs for breakfast, and she collected spoons.
My God.
And since then, every time I see her, we kind of take a spoon from wherever we are. And so this is one of the spoons, because she feels they
one of Astrid?
Yeah, they bring good luck and they keep nasty energies away. So that's the story of the spoon.
Okay. This is
so carry a spoon around every day and you'll always be protected.
Yeah, really?
I
don't know if it's right, but if it's right, I take the advice. Okay. Now a question from a little girl, 9 years old, Anna. She says, my mom told me about Libby's story. When did you find confidence in yourself? Did the people around you change their attitude?
I think, it took me a long time to get confident, a very, very long time. But I think if I knew what I know now, I could have got more confident more quickly. Because I think there are some things you can do to help yourself. Yeah. So just a really practical tip. If you don't believe in yourself, if you look at yourself in the mirror in the morning and just you don't like what you see, tell yourself off.
The méthode Coué in French.
Yeah, exactly. Don't say nasty things about your body, about your hair. We talk to ourselves so negatively somehow in our head, and yet when we're talking to other people, we're so kind. So it's to stop the negative chatter in the head when you're looking in mirrors. The other thing that's a really lovely technique to do is celebrate 3 things every day. At the end of the day, everyone gets home and often it's easy to moan about the traffic and the bad day at work, but let's turn it on its head. Let's celebrate 3 great things that everyone did. It's a bit like Thanksgiving in America. On Thanksgiving Day, everyone goes around the table and says thank you. This is to do it every day because it only takes 21 days to change anything in your life. 21 days to change behavior. So if every day, so for example, even if it's just as simple as I saw the most beautiful rose in the garden, or I managed to do my homework before watching my favourite TV show. Anything, it can be anything.
And you did that?
I do it.
3 things by day?
I do it, and it's even better to write it.
Okay.
And actually writing a diary can really help you, because when you're lacking confidence, you often have feelings inside you don't necessarily share with other people, not even your mum or your dad. And so if you write a diary, you can somehow get those feelings out and put them on paper, so they're not part of you anymore, and it makes you feel lighter. Exactly.
Okay. Okay. Next question. So we have a question from Nicola. He says, I was a special child and I became an adult, not exactly like the others. To which public, young or old ugly, your book is addressed to?
Well, I wrote for Libby, which is me, age 12. So I've written this book for a 12-year-old. But I think any little girl or boy could read this between the age 8 and 12. And also it's for their mum and dads, because what I found from talking to people who've read the book is that they like reading it with their mum and dad in the evening, because seeing what happens to Libby is important for parents too, so that they can understand how hard it is for children now at school, with cyberbullying, with all kinds of pressures that they have to go through. But I've also had 6-year-olds reading my book. In fact, anyone that's suffered from low self-esteem would appreciate it, and there'll be a message for them.
Yeah, okay, understand. I agree with that. Okay, so as a writer, to finish our question, do you have other projects in the future?
I do.
Yeah.
I never thought I would do. In fact, when I finished the book 1, I thought, okay, that's it. And then I started writing book 2 and then book 3, and it's just kept flowing. And I thought, okay, well, maybe that's it. Maybe I'm going to do something else. And then one night, my husband was snoring, and I had this idea that wouldn't it be brilliant to see a snore, to see what a snore looks like.
Yeah.
And so I've written a story which is for a younger age group called Edith and the Snoresaurs, which is about a little girl who goes into her parents' room. And one night she sees her father snoring really loudly, like, you know, that snuffly piggy sound. And out comes this creature, which is
crazy.
I know. Which is a mixture of the Mr. Men and dinosaurs, and there's a different one. So there's Inventosaur, there's Dreamosaur, there's Toughosaur, and they all have different lessons for little Edith. So they all visit her every night, and there's a different one every night. And then I have another project called Rainboy, which is more of it could be TV or film. I don't know. It's very visual, and it's about a little boy whose emotions affect the weather. So when he cries, it rains. That's a very
interesting.
It's a very kind of simple summary of it, but it's a story of how one little boy's feelings can affect the whole cosmos.
Okay, very interesting. This is your 2 main projects.
I have another one as well, but no, because it's...
We will not speak about all your projects because this is full of projects.
Yeah, but I think when you start writing, it's like, you know, you can't ever take a holiday. Yeah, you wake up in the middle of the night. I often write best in between being awake and being asleep, that dream-like state when sort of the subconscious is almost there and you can tap into it. And
you have inspiration.
Yeah, like some of the things I've come up with, I don't even know why. It's like, it's an energy that's even greater than me, so.
Okay.
It's like, it is what it is now, and I'm following it, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, okay. So, now, could you please make us dream a bit more by telling us about the 2 other volumes? Because
of course.
We speak a little bit, but
yeah,
more.
Definitely. So I don't want to give the stories away, of course, but you meet Libby in the first book, and you see her have to wrestle with the dark side of Narcissus, which is all about obsession with perfect beauty. In book 2, we find out that there's a fashion show, a modelling competition in real life, which is drawing in lots of girls. And across the book, you find out that maybe there isn't something great happening around it, and it's up to Libby to sort it out. And in book 3, the stakes are even higher, because Imago will stop at nothing to turn every little child into a perfect one. He can't stand difference, he can't stand ugliness, he wants them all to look the same and to be like robots, I suppose. So in book 3 there is a huge event that happens where children end up being, well, I won't give it away, but it's it's a big event, yeah, okay. Which shows that you know, unfortunately there are, you know, the dark side of narcissism is out there, and it's a metaphor for trying to be perfect when it's just impossible. It's impossible, and there's no need.
Yeah, there's no need. Yeah.
There's no need at all, because we're all wonderful as we are.
Oh.
Everybody is perfect, as in everybody is perfect. Yeah.
Everybody feels perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Before we leave, I have just one last question that brings us back to Outboard School. Did you fulfill your dreams?
I think I have fulfilled my creative dreams, definitely. Yeah. There was always something inside me that was bursting to get out, and it's happened, and I'm writing. I think in an ideal world, I'd love for lots of little girls and boys to have this book. So until then, I haven't quite managed that part of my dream, because I think if I'd had this book, which would have been a safe place for me, something for me, I would have felt less alone. So my dream is for lots of little girls and boys to read the book and to find comfort in it, and so that they can go on to grow and flourish, and not let other people's judgment and their insecurities become obstacles, because low self-esteem is probably one of the biggest threats to a woman or a man's well-being today.
Okay, so thank you so much, Elisabeth. It was a great pleasure to be with you today. Thanks to all for watching us, and let me remind you that Elisabeth books are available on all ebooks platforms as well as paperback. Thank you, and bye-bye.